Hey there, it's Olivia-Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to talk about a catastrophe actually, which is the fact that sometimes I say I'm super excited to get a book in, I can't wait to read it, it's going to be the next thing that I'm going to read, absolutely, promise, will read this immediately. And then I don't, read it for a very long time. So I'm gonna fess up and tell you about some books that I said I would read immediately as soon as I got my hands on them, then I got my hands on them, and then I didn't read them immediately. And I'm gonna explain my reasonings why, or try my very best to. Number one book where this is the case, where I said I was going to read it immediately and I haven't done, is Greywaren by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the final book in the Dreamers trilogy, which is the sequel series to the Raven Cycle. And the Raven Cycle is one of my number one best series ever. I love that series. It's perfection. Will not hear a bad word about it. That's actually not true. I will hear bad words about it, but in my mind there are no bad words to have about it. That series is perfection and I love it bits to bits to bits. And I actually started reading this one since fairly recently. I'm 25 pages in, hence the bookmark. But the reason why I said I was going to immediately read this is because it is the last one in the trilogy and I couldn't wait to finish this story. But then Maggie Stiefvater announced something, and she said she is never writing another book set in the Raven Cycle universe, which means once I read this book, it's done. It's finished. There is no more original Raven Cycle new material for me to read. All I've got left is my trusty fanfiction, which I will still read, but you can see how that's quite hard for me to know this is the end. And so I started to not want to read this last book, even though I'm very curious about how things are going to wrap up. Even though the last book ended on such a cliffhanger, I just could not bring myself to do it. But I was having a rainy day and I managed to start reading this one, and hopefully I'll just continue and finish it at some point. But it is going to be a sorrowful goodbye, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't start this one immediately as soon as I got my hands on it. Another book I was so excited for and I couldn't wait to get my hands on it because everybody was talking about it at the time was Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. And one of my close friends here in London, Faye, who you might know if you've been on this channel for a while, has also read this and really recommended it to me. Literally everyone has, and yet I keep delaying it. I was so excited, but I also sometimes get this thing where the hype builds so much so that I'm worried I'm going to be the only one who doesn't like it, and I highly think that's unlikely because I've read things by R.F. Kuang before and I know I've liked them and I know I like her writing style, and it sounds like this is talking about something that I will be particularly interested in as someone who works within publishing, and yet I keep putting it off. And the excuse that I give people now is that I know I'm going to burn through it, and so I need to wait until I have a few days of my life where I can dedicate solely to reading and don't have any other obligations to take care of. So that's my reasoning around this one, but I really should just jump the gun and actually do it for once. This next one is scary. It's scary because it's Heartsong by TJ Klune. So I read, it's quite recent as well, but I read Wolfsong and Ravensong earlier this year towards the end of January, and then a couple of days later this one came out, and my best friend got this copy for me. So as soon as she got it I was like, I want to read it right now, but a series of unfortunate events happened. Not like a series of unfortunate events, so actually a series of very good events happened, but it meant I didn't have time to read this book. So namely, the first thing that happened was I got my new job, and with getting a new job, which is very exciting, but within publishing it means you need to get familiar with the books, you need to get familiar with the authors that you're working on, and it means you have a lot of required reading just as you're starting off and trying to get a grip on everything you're going to be working on, which meant I didn't have time to read Heartsong, and this wasn't one that I wanted to read little bit by little bit. I want to read this the exact same way, or I'm going to end up reading this the exact same way I read the first two, which is where I did not eat, sleep or rest because I just had this book in my mind and I knew I needed to know what happened next, and I knew I needed to keep reading. And so even though I said to Yana I'm going to start this right now, realistically I couldn't because I had a lot of workbooks to read, but also I didn't want to read this while reading other books. I just want this to consume my whole soul, and this other two books in this series have consumed my whole soul. So I need to find time in my life where things are fairly peaceful and I will let it consume my soul. But if you know me in my life, you know that doesn't happen easily often. Very different kind of book is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie Farrell. I said I would read this immediately because I loved Hamnet with all of my heart and all of my soul. The writing was amazing, the story was perfect, it filled the Shakespeare void in my life that needed filling at that time, and Hamnet was just perfection. It was also dealing essentially with grief, and grief is just one of the themes that I really appreciate reading about, and I think it handled that beautifully too. The only scary thing about Marriage Portrait is that Hamnet was such a good book. I'm a bit intimidated and scared to read any other Maggie Farrell in case it's not as good, and some people have said that this book is even better than Hamnet, and like, I trust you guys, but I'm also questioning your judgment. But I think the reason why I'm so tied to Hamnet as well is because it felt like it was written specifically for me. It had all of the things that I like about, or I used to like about historical fiction, about writing, about grief, and about Shakespeare in one book. Like, it was so catered towards me. I don't think anything else can stand up to it, even if it's by the same author. So that's why I keep putting this one off, but I do want to read it because I do want to read more Maggie Farrell, because I think I'm gonna like everything that she's written. So I just need to get over myself basically and switch up my mindset to pick it up. This is embarrassing. So when I read Pet by Akwaeke Emezi, it was amazing, and it still is amazing. It's such a fantastic book. But then when I knew that Bitter was going to be coming out the following year, I was all about it. I was checking every single bookshop. I went and asked, do you have Bitter in? And nobody had it in for some reason. Probably people were buying it reason, but yeah, I couldn't get a copy anywhere. And then I went to London Book Fair and I managed to pick up a copy of Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi, and then I didn't read it. And it's been over a year. It's been 2 years now. Have I read it? No. And it's not even long, so I have no reason to not have read this one. It's just because I know I'm gonna love it, and I don't understand. I don't understand my choices and motivations. Actually, I endeavour to read this one within the next few months. That is my promise. My promise is to read Bitter within the next few months, because it's absolutely ridiculous that I haven't read this yet. I just know I'm gonna love it, because every single Akwaeke Emezi book I've read since reading Pet, I have loved. I just haven't picked up the one that's connected to Pet. Make it make sense. I read Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall, and Alexis Hall is someone I consider, well, he was my #1 favourite romance author, but then Sarah Simone has walked into my life and is shaking up all of my understandings of favourite romance authors. But I do still say that Alexis Hall is one of my favourite romance authors. And I read a lot of his indie published stuff, and I really, really loved it. And I have a whole video about where you can dip into his writing for the first time, and my thoughts and feelings about indie published romance versus traditionally published romance. But I did go and read Boyfriend Material, which is his first traditionally published one, and I thought it was very, very good, like 4 stars good. But all of his indie published stuff to me has been 5 stars good, so it was the first one where I didn't love it completely. And so when I got Husband Material as a gift, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna read this immediately, and I told everybody I would, and then I didn't, because I'm scared. I'm scared if his traditionally published stuff is just not as good, and that's going to be a steady trajectory for me. I only read one and thought that way, so I'm not sure why I'm putting off reading the next one to be able to prove it or not, but I actually will be reading this one soon, because my best friend chose it for a video project we are working on, and so now it's one that I need to read for that video project, and I will get to it very soon now. But I'm apprehensive about it, and yet in Alexis Hall we trust, so I do believe it's going to be good. Regardless, I've just been delaying it and procrastinating because of my own internal fears. How tragic. Last but not least, this is a series one. So we all know I'm a standalone reader, and so I do take my sweet time reading my series. And there are a few series where I finish the first book and I'm like, I need to read the next one right now. I often don't feel that way. But when I read the first book in the sequel series by Riordan to Percy Jackson, which is called The Lost Hero, I was really, really invested, and I had a really good time, and I didn't expect to love it that much. And then my good friend Taylor got me the rest of the series. So the next one is The Son of Neptune by Riordan, and yet I haven't read it yet. And I'm frustrated by myself for this because of the fact that you meet Leo Valdez in the first book in the series, and I loved Leo. I thought he was a fantastic character, and yet his character was growing, and I can just tell that in the rest of the series there's going to be more Leo, and I'm going to love seeing more of Leo and seeing more of Leo's development. So I need to continue the series to see more Leo. And it was actually a good plot as well. So what am I doing with my life? Who knows? I need to continue this series. And these are middle grade books, so you can read them as a child. And yet they are still, tell me a page number, please. They're still 500 pages long. Like, this is a 500-page book. And I know sometimes people think middle grade goes faster because there's bigger font, but it's still 500 pages long. So it will take me time. I just need to read it. I think it's going to be good though. I'm so excited. I'm so excited because, oh, that's plot spoilers. Anyway, I'm excited. I'm excited for the next book in the series. I just need to read it. So there you have it. Those are some books I'm super excited for. And I said I would read as soon as I got them in my hands. And then I got them in my hands and I haven't read them. Yeah, we're going to work on that. We're going to work on that. So maybe I'll do this video like next year and see if I have repeat offenders or if I finally read them. Please let me know in the comment section down below. Is this something you do? Do you delay a book that you're super excited for whatever reason? And if you do, which book are you currently delaying? Let's confess. Let's have it out in the comments. It's cleansing. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!